So you're a physician or a busy professional, and you say, hey, why not? Let's go ahead and start an online business. Well, before you jump in, you need to listen to this interview I do with anesthesiologist Dr. Marjorie Stiegler. Now, Dr. Stiegler started her own business because she had a problem and she was trying to find a solution, and there was nothing out there. So what did she do instead? Is she started her own business, very successful, that she later sold. You'll want to listen to this. Dr. Marjorie Stiegler, online business entrepreneur and anesthesiologist, on this episode of BootcampMD. Hey guys, this is Dr. Mike Leming. Thank you for joining us on another episode of BootcampMD. Really excited on this episode. I've been working with doctors for probably over a decade or so and helping them start their own business. And I wish I could say 100% of the time that people actually go out and actually do those things. But as you know, life gets in the way. They might have other challenges, other things that take precedent. And so I was really excited when I ran across this physician who I first learned about by hearing a friend of mine, Dr. John Derica, as you guys know, who does a podcast on non-clinical careers, and had her as a guest. And I was so excited, I wanted to get her on the program. And today's guest is Dr. Marjorie Stiegler. She is an anesthesiologist. She received her medical degree from Emory University, did a residency at Harvard Mass General Hospital, and she had a really, really unique experience that I'd love to share with you guys, and how she started her online business, but I'll let her tell the story of it. Now what she does is she helps healthcare leaders, physicians, and physician entrepreneurs, helping them with their social media and digital strategy. She has a number of different courses that really help doctors able to do this, build their own brand. She talks about leveraging your online networks for career transition, and that's just really the top of the iceberg. Margaret, you're so diverse in the amount of things that you do that I couldn't put in a 2-minute bio. So I sabotaged that intro for you, but first, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
So I'm a big, and you probably didn't get this, but I'm a bit of a nerd. I do admit this, a bit of a comic book nerd. So bear with me as you see where we're going. But I'm always a big fan of origin stories. Like how did Clark Kent become Superman, and how did Peter Parker become Spider-Man? So the thing that I like to do with my guests is finding out about their origin story, because I believe that probably when you were in medical school, you were thinking about becoming a social media expert, branding leader. How did this all come about from an anesthesiologist to actually starting your online business? Maybe we can start from there.
Sure. Well, the story is surprising and kind of long. So if you are interested, I'll just give you the high points. So about a year after I finished my residency, I was at Mass General. I moved to Los Angeles, and I was there as a faculty, just being an anesthesiologist. But I was also starting my family, and I was pregnant with my first child. Before I was a doctor, I was a personal trainer. So I was very interested in fitness. And as I started to get a belly from my pregnancy, I started to realize there was a big void in the market. And I know you're wondering, like, what does this have to do with anything? But because I was in LA, which has a very flourishing garment district just right down the street, and my husband was in business school there, so we knew a lot of people who had their own businesses, and it just seemed very doable, we decided to start a maternity athletic wear company to basically fix my problem, which is that I wanted cuter, high-performing stuff to wear to the gym while I was pregnant. And so we did that successfully, which in some ways is quite a miracle, because it was a retail business that we started from scratch without investors and sort of trial and error every step of the way. But the long and short of it is that we sold it online exclusively, and we didn't have an advertising budget. So websites were different 10 years ago, and social media was certainly barely even in existence. But we really got a lot of hands-on education in figuring out how to get found online and how to leverage organic or viral, so to speak, ways of being found rather than paid search. And so in doing that for that company, I this is funny to admit, in doing that for that company, I wanted to have what I thought would be a safe space to experiment online where nobody was really looking, so that I could figure out how it worked and then deploy it to the business. So I started a physician website because I figured nobody was looking. So I started a blog. I got on Twitter. I began doing things as a physician online, again, assuming nobody was looking. But then, as careers do move and shift, once I figured out what I was doing, a lot of people started to ask me, what are you doing online as a physician? And by then I had started, people were looking, right? People were visiting the blog, and I was getting speaking invitations and real tangible sort of academic CV types of results from that, which was never anything I had set out to do. But then, because it had happened, people asked how and why. And so then I started to talk more about that. And my career just continues to kind of go wherever the adventure takes me, wherever sort of the need is. But that's how I ended up where I am today, which is helping other physicians understand not only how they can develop their professional brands or grow their private practice or their academic careers, but also how they can successfully grow actual startups, other types of businesses, non-medical pursuits, because I've done both.
That's incredible. So a couple of questions I have for you is, do you still have the maternity exercise wear business?
It is still alive and well. I've sold it since,
Oh,
so about
okay.
2 years ago I sold it, but yeah, it's alive and well, and was just an amazing learning experience, and a really something I'm really, really proud of. It was really fun.
Now, as you know, most doctors, or perhaps all doctors, hardly have any type of business training. Maybe
That's right.
every once in a while someone will get an MD, MBA, but I know certainly my medical school, I had no business training. So did you get the business experience? Did you get help from your husband? Was it because of your personal training background that you had to learn how to hustle? What were the kind of things that kind of led you to actually start a business?
Well, so part of it, of course, was that my husband's classmates from the MBA just made it seem so very attainable. So while none of them directly helped us launch the business or build the business, it was just the fact, I think, that we were surrounded by this milieu of business owners who made it seem like it was just the obvious step.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was helpful to us, because I don't think many entrepreneurs or would-be entrepreneurs get over that first hurdle, which is wondering if they can, and then they just don't, because it seems too formidable. And then I think the other thing, is that I really was, I was just learning as much as I could online, the way many people do, from experts in the traditional digital marketing space. And for me, for our company, that worked really, really well. It doesn't translate exactly into what physicians need. So there's some nuances there, but the resources for learning how to do just traditional retail digital marketing were available. So I just learned as much as I could, really, as we went.
That's great. So you're a practicing anesthesiologist currently, or have you?
I
Yeah, go ahead.
I am, but I see patients just 1 day a week.
1 day a week. So many times when I see physicians want to start their own business, they say, I don't know where I can find the time to actually start the business. Maybe they're doing this part time, or maybe they're just saying, this looks like it's too much work to do. What advice would you give a physician who is looking to start a business, but they're not ready to dip their feet into? What kind of advice would you
Yeah.
give to them?
That's an important question, because I did start the company when I was working full time. And the reason that I only see patients 1 day a week is because I happen to have many other irons in the fire now that pay the bills. But I think it's a mistake to start a business to make money, which I realize sounds crazy, but it's a mistake to start a business just to make money. You should start a business around things that you love and that you're passionate about, because you will indeed be working late into the night and on the weekends and on your spare time to get that off the ground. There's kind of no way around that, I don't think. There may be some rare exceptions, but generally speaking, while you're learning how to be a successful business person, and while you are developing brand awareness and developing your products and refining your market position and all of that, you're going to be working. And so if you happen to have the leisure of not having a full-time job, then that's super. But if you don't, you're going to be spending a lot of spare time there. And so you've got to love it, because you want it to be something that you look forward to spending all this extra time on. Or it will really burn you out more than likely. And then you probably won't be successful.
That's a great point. A lot of people, like they do, they think, oh, we want to be in business to make money, because that's pretty much the definition of starting a business. And of course, you have all these, so-called internet gurus to make everything sound easy, right? The easy button, to have
Right.
the laptop lifestyle. But it's not so, it's not so Hollywood, or not so, appealing as what it really is. So
Yeah.
maybe you could give us an example, just maybe an insight of how you work. What's like a typical, day for you? I know you have a family.
Yeah.
And you've got your on-aid businesses, and then you have your other physician duties that you do, even though you're not
Yeah.
practicing full-time. Maybe you could give a little bit insight of is there a typical day for Dr. Stiegler?
No, no, there is not. I mean, on any given day, I may be doing a variety of things. I still do a fair amount of traditional academic stuff. So I might be traveling, giving a grand round somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
or I might be, in the operating room, or I might be working on a paper, or I might be working as I'm the director of digital strategy for a nonprofit, the Anesthesia Patient Safety Foundation. So I do a fair amount of work there. And then of course my businesses, and everyone has a day job. So it could be anything and everything. One thing that I do appreciate now that I didn't have before is I really do guard my nights and weekends and holidays in a way that I couldn't when I was in a traditional academic practice, especially in anesthesiology, because traumas and babies and stuff are coming at every hour of the day, every day of the year. So that was not a practice that, was conducive to me being able to really spend time with my family and my kids while they're young the way that I wanted to. So if there's anything typical about my days, it's that I know when I stop, I choose when I stop, and I do stop. I stop at night and on the weekends.
I'm also I'm a lot of different types of nerds, but I'm also a productivity nerd. And just as an aside, do you have any productivity tools you use? Either it's with your phone or an app, or do you do any type of online scheduling to keep you uh, on task on all these different activities you do? Because it does get overwhelming.
That's a great question. And I really would like to find one. I don't think I have one. And so I'm sort of old school with a journal. But I think that the two things that I do that, or maybe the three things that I do that I think have helped me the most is, when I wake up in the morning, before I get on my computer or my phone or anything like that, I think about my day, and I think about, what are the 1 to 3 things that I need to accomplish that day? Because if I don't have that already written down and ready to be attacked, then of course you open your inbox and you just start reacting to whatever is coming in the moment. And then you don't get the most important thing done. So I try to do that in the morning. I write that down. And then I also, before I get, again, into my email or anything else, I write down what time, what is going to be the close of my day. And sometimes the close of my day is when I finish a certain task. So I know I'm going to be done today when I finish XYZ, or I'm going to be done today at 3:30 or whatever. It's either a time or a task. So I try to predefine that, and I stick to it pretty carefully. And that helps me, kind of structure my day. And then the other thing, which may sound cliche, and it's in all the books, but I think is really important, is the whole sort of sharpening the saw and paying attention to what's important rather than what's urgent. And really having a long-term view of things in terms of relationships, in terms of strategic approach to business, and in terms of family, in terms of positioning for just about everything. I think it's really important to not get caught up in what's happening minute to minute, but to have a long-term view.
That's great. Yeah, it's hard to see the long-term view. And one thing that I did like what you said is you focused on the 1 to 3 things that you need to, that you feel like your day gets accomplished if you complete. I remember I struggled with, I've got like 50 things, right?
Yes.
And then what happens is, if you don't finish those 50 things, you feel like your day is defeated. And then, I don't know where I read it somewhere, but I've always now focused down to 3, went from 50 to 25 to 3. And
Yes.
now I feel my day is much more accomplished. And
Yeah.
like yourself, I'm also old school, and nothing really beats a journal for me in terms of productivity. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
I want to kind of change the pace with is you're known for your expertise in social media. I know you've spoken at places, at events on your social media expertise. And one thing that I run into a lot with doctors, they want to start a business venture or a task, but then they want to hide themselves. They don't want anybody else to know. And
Yeah.
I'm not making light of it. You know, someone might be working for someone else. I'm sure you've seen these
Right.
physician forums where there are all these 5,000 anonymous posts, right?
Right.
And so many doctors are afraid of getting into social media. What's your advice?
Yeah. Oh, I think what you've just brought up is super important. And I think it's important sort of in two ways. I mean, one is the more broad physician who's afraid of social media or afraid of being able to be found online. I think that's a sort of bigger and separate discussion because you know there are many benefits and some potential risk, of course, to being online in general, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. I think it's really important for physicians to do that, but again, I think that's a bigger thing. In terms of launching a business, I think you're absolutely right, and it really disadvantages people because, as you can imagine, you cannot build brand awareness or get paying customers if you're not willing to sort of put your hand up and say, I'm here, right? I'm open for business. And I think there's a lot of legitimate reasons that people hold back from that. Some of it is that they want to protect the sort of integrity or the view of their reputation as a physician, and they feel like whatever they're interested in business wise might detract from that or confuse people. And then some people, I think, worry that what will their boss think? You know, there's always that, or um, you know, what will other people think and say? And then I think finally, it's just it's there's a timidness when you're thinking about starting a business where you have an idea and you really haven't committed yet. You haven't put that stake in the ground and said, I'm going for it. And people are holding themselves back, I think, by staying invisible in that way. I don't know when they expect to flip that switch because I think in most people's minds they're successful first and then they flip the switch, but it really doesn't usually work that way.
Yeah, I know a few physicians in this space who they mention their name, but they first start out with and this is just off the top of my head, like the white coat investor, you know, a well-known brand. But for a while, you didn't know who was actually behind that. And it wasn't until that he got out that I think it just adds to that transparency. And I think it you know when you're able to share, it's very difficult to do with a pseudonym, or I guess it can be done. But if you're branding yourself where you are the expert in that business, I really think you owe it to yourself to go out there and say who you are and what you do and what are the things that you do. I know that
Oh,
I share you know, on my podcast, like, you know, the highs and the lows and when things get bad, or, you know, I'm late for picking up my kids or something like that. And I don't know, for me, for some, it might seem trivial, but for me, I think it just helps, you know, get closer to your prospect or your customer than to say, hey, it's a real person behind this business.
so yeah, Mike, I agree with you. I think there's something that's really value added when people get a peek behind the curtain. So you mentioned the white coat investor. I don't know him personally, but certainly he's had success probably before and after his identity was known. But people really like to know who's behind it. And you see that in brands for whom it shouldn't matter at all. You think of any sort of ad that you hear on the radio, you know, and you're always hearing directly from the founder, you know, the people who founded the company that sells sheets or socks or whatever. And you don't need to know who that person is the same way you need to know who a consultant is. But yet people are sharing that part anyway because they know it's relatable and customers really like it. And when customers like you and they trust you and they feel like they have some understanding of your credibility as a human being, then they're much more at ease buying from you. So I think it is an incredibly important part, and it can be very hard to move forward anonymously, though not impossible. But it does help when people kind of get a peek behind the scenes and get to know you.
Yeah, especially in businesses where I think you're the expert on in terms of personal branding. You know, when you have these type of businesses, in the sense they're just they're buying your courses, I know, but in the sense, they're just buying you. I mean, they're buying your expertise. So, in this case, financial advice, you kind of want to have that connection versus it's, like an Amazon store where you're buying perfume. It's a lot different there. But certainly when
Yeah.
you're trying to brand yourself, you really do need to be out there. And if you're not, well, maybe that type of business isn't right for you.
That's right. Because I think one of the things that's really, really important, especially in the modern day, because we hear this criticism a lot that branding, people who aren't into that idea or for whom they misunderstand the word, I think they think that we are making things up about ourselves, right? You're just painting this picture of yourself to be somebody or something that you aren't. And that's absolutely not what branding is about. It's just about conveying the value that you do have in a way that connects with your intended customer. And the customer needs to know what it is that you can do for them. And they need to be able to see that you have authentic credibility. And this is where getting to know a person really matters, because everywhere you turn on the internet, people are coaches and gurus and consultants and so on. But when you really peel back the layers, many of those people have no actual business experience. And you'll see many, many life coaches who have like barely graduated from college, and they may have a lot of skill in coaching, right? I don't mean to disparage that. There's just it's important, I think, when you're buying a service or a consultant or a program, to know that business has gotten real results. And those results should either be results for other clients, or if you're just starting out, they should be tangible results of your own that you can at least point to. And those results and success stories get bigger over time as you become more successful. But it's sort of disingenuous to launch a business if you've just learned about the topic, but you don't have any sort of end results, any tangible ROI to offer. So I think that's a reason that people really like to know who's behind the brand, and what they want to know, what that person's done in order to sort of earn their business.
Yeah, just an aside, but you made me think of a funny incident when I went to a local business chamber of commerce meeting, local business meeting, and I met, and we were going around the room, and we were asking each other what they do, and there was one young gentleman who came in, and he was a little bit late because he was bicycling in to the meeting, and his job was a courier, a painter, a palm reader, and a life coach.
Wow.
So he really diversified his there, but yeah, you're right. It is hard to kind of distinguish in the interwebs about what's true and what's not. So,
Yeah.
what led you to actually start teaching doctors? There's a lot of different, like you said, there's a lot of gurus out there. There's a lot of places where they can get information. But what led you to actually teaching doctors about online businesses and building your brand? How did that go? What made you decide to go into that way?
Well, I think like many people who start businesses, it's because people asked me to. They asked me not explicitly to start a course, right? But people asked me the same number of questions, and many of them were the same questions. And they are not short answer questions; they're long answer questions for how to, really a how-to type of implementation around personal brand building, or around a startup company building, or around some effective professional use of blog and social media. So my bandwidth just got full. After I love to help people, and I'm happy to do that. So after I had answered as many questions as I possibly could in a given, day after day and year after year, I thought I should really just, if people clearly care about this, they want to know about this, I should put all my thoughts into a more organized format and make it available to as many people that want it. Because even today, I'll get probably a dozen emails every day from different people who will say, "Oh, I saw what you're doing online and I'd love to chat. Could I pick your brain about how physicians could be online?" And, some years ago, I would have said, "Yes, of course, let's chat." But I just don't have the bandwidth for that today. So I've put it in the courses, and I hope that does help everybody, everyone who's interested.
So, what do you think is why? Maybe there's something specifically with physicians Do you find that there's a different audience versus, just a regular everyday folks? Do we have certain differences in terms of online businesses that we need to be aware of?
Well, I think we do have different views on things, and we do have different potential risks. And so all of my courses include a 2-week module on physician specific issues, because everybody's business is a little bit different. But as you know, once you're online and you're public, if you are still practicing medicine, or even if you just have a medical license, depending on the nature of your business, you might have some professional liability in the medical legal space. And even if you do not, you may have some reputational concerns around whether your current colleagues and boss are seeing you in a certain way, and you want to perhaps make sure that those things are handled in the way that you desire, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's sort of separate or connected, or however you want to bridge that. So I think there are a handful of physician-specific issues for sure. The other thing is that doctors in general, I think, are a little bit different than most entrepreneurs because we are so very busy. So as you mentioned in the beginning, I mean, people are very, very busy, and they aren't necessarily all that interested in learning how to do stuff themselves. What I see is this desire to outsource, and it's a really effective strategic thing to do, but only at the right time and with the right things. So that's one thing too that I think is a little bit different, because other folks who are either part-time workers or stay-at-home parents who are sort of launching a hobby business is really different for them, because they have generally less working capital to sort of self-invest, but they have much more time, and they have much more, I think, interest in doing it all themselves. And physicians just have sort of a different risk tolerance and a different sort of preference when it comes to, what am I going to put my elbow grease into, and what am I just going to throw some money at and hope someone else will do a good job in reflecting what I want to build, which is it's a big challenge. But
I'm sorry. Yeah. Did that surprise you after you've been teaching these doctors that?
Well, I'm not sure that it's that much of a surprise, but it is a challenge because, it is smart to have things that are, tasks that get repeated, to outsource that type of work. It's not smart to outsource strategic thinking about what it is that you want to offer, and who it is that you want to offer it to, and how it is that you want to connect with them. And a lot of relationships over either email or social media. That I think is a mistake to outsource, because they will never connect with that agency or that freelancer in the same way that they will with you. So, for example, many people get to know me through my Facebook videos, because I have a lot of free videos on these topics. And if I had outsourced that to an agency, then they might love it, but then when they sign up for my course, they would be getting something completely different. So I think showing up in that way for the strategic and relationship building parts of your business, I don't think they can be outsourced, really. And I mean, eventually when you hit a certain amount of success, then you can get a team and there's a sort of brand consistency. But people, I think, are outsourcing the wrong things, if I can put it that way.
That's so true. One of the things that I consult with is I help businesses, or I help doctors start up their practice. And important aspect of it is, of course, marketing your practice. And many doctors, they wanted to assign that to somebody else, hire an agency. And what I tell them is, you need to understand what you're paying for. You have to understand what you can't just think that you can buy, $2,000 worth of Facebook ads and think magically you'll have new patients. You'll at least need to understand what is the mechanism, and have some understanding of marketing. Or you'll end up just like your students. They won't understand what actually is going on, and then they won't know how to fix the business when they're having problems. So
that's right
that you gave there. Well, we're coming up to the end. I want to value your time again, Marjorie. This has been outstanding. Great information you've been sharing. You mentioned your courses that you have, and you've got quite a diverse number of different courses. Maybe you could share one that what can a student expect going through your courses that you could share with our audience today?
Sure. Two of the most popular ones that are available is the speaking prescription and the branding prescription. The branding prescription is really much more than branding, but it's about understanding the concepts of development of a brand and brand positioning and differentiation, and then also how to translate that into what you do on your website, what you do with social media, and what your actual business offerings look like. And again, physician-specific issues wrapped up around that.
Mm-hmm.
The speaking prescription is for people who want to learn to get paid to speak. So
Ah,
people, many physicians are giving free or close to free talks all the time in terms of grand rounds and other academic kinds of things. And many are shocked that in business and in industry, it's really quite common for people to earn 10 or 20 or $50,000 for a presentation that these physicians are well qualified to be able to give, but they just don't know that world exists and they don't know how to navigate it. So that's a course that's primarily focused on the speaking of business, that's a course that's primarily focused on the business aspect of public speaking rather than on the speaking aspect of public speaking, if you know what I mean.
gotcha.
And so those are two, and both courses are in the same format. They're online. They are sort of module based. So there's 6 modules, and each are about 2 weeks in length. Each module consists of something on the order of 5 to 7 video lessons with PDF support documents that have little homework assignments. And the content is released every 2 weeks so that you have time to actually digest what you've watched and read and then do it. Because I am a big believer that you get clarity with action. So you can't just binge stuff and think about it. That doesn't move you ahead. So I set my stuff up that you can't binge it. You've got to move forward stepwise. I suppose you could just wait, not do the homework, and watch the next module when it comes out. But I'm hopeful that setting it up that way gives people the best results because they actually do the work in between.
Thank you for sharing that. And if you want to get access to those courses or learn more about it, we'll leave you links here in the podcast. So again, thank you, Marjorie, for spending the time with us today. I know I got a lot out of it. Just really cool getting to know another physician entrepreneur who's actually in the trenches, actually out there doing it and teaching good work. Any last minute thoughts or advice you could give to our audience today, just to wrap up?
Yeah. Well, one thing that I think that is important for people who want to start a business also to understand is that they need to listen to what people want first and create the product or the service second. So a lot of people just jump into the creation phase. Like, I want to make this and try to sell it to people. But I think if you really take an outwardly focused view of your business, how can I help other people? And that may sound a little bit naive, but I think it certainly has been true for me. Being an expert isn't about you knowing everything. It's about how you can help someone else get results. So if you spend a lot of time listening to what people want and need, and then deliver them that, rather than trying to find people who want stuff that you want to make, that's just sort of a reverse approach. And you get wonderful, wonderful customers who are just perfect. They're a perfect match for you, and you're a perfect match for them. If you are outwardly focused, listen carefully, and then just try to deliver on what will help other people rather than what will help put a feather in your own sort of cap of expertise.
And I think that's a great point to end on. So thank you, Dr. Marjorie Stiegler, Physician Leadership in a Digital World. Go ahead and check out her products. She's got different products. I know she has a Facebook group. We'll put all that into the podcast here. Thanks again for being on the call today.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you guys for listening. And as always, keep moving forward. I want to thank Dr. Marjorie Stiegler for sharing with us her wisdom today. And if you want to check out her courses, you can go to bootstrapmd.com/go/onlinerx. What that is she'll teach you how to build your own online course or virtual business without all of the headaches and mistakes that come with it. Again, that's bootstrapmd.com/go/onlinerx. And her other program she offers is how you can become a paid speaker as a physician. And if you would like to check that out, you can go to bootstrapmd.com/go/speakingrx. And just in the spirit of transparency, we are affiliates for Marjorie, and Bootstrap MD does get a commission if you decide to go ahead and purchase those programs. I always say the best shortcut to success is to find somebody who's already been there and actually done it, and Marjorie certainly has done it. This is Dr. Mike with Bootstrap MD. Have a wonderful day.